Hi and welcome to episode 62 of The Party Line. This podcast was recorded on Aboriginal land and we stand in solidarity with our Indigenous brothers and sisters in their struggle against racism and capitalism.
Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling party line. Oh, I never will forsake thee, for I love this life of mine.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi, Anneke.
How are you both going?
Not bad.
Not bad?
I'm good, Anneke.
Let's go start this. So the bulk of this episode is an interview with Michael Dulaney, who is an award-winning journalist and author of a new book called Sentinels, which I've been calling Sentinels for the entire week that I've been reading it.
Smooth. Do we know why it's called Sentinels?
It's like they're the canaries in the coal mine, like the portents for what's to come. So like the duck is a sentinel for bird flu or whatever.
Because it dies first. Or
Yeah.
gets sick first.
Yeah. Or like the chickens or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a really excellent book.
Yeah.
The interview, we already recorded it. That's the magic of Hollywood, baby. But it's a really interesting interview. Michael was a great guest.
Yeah.
He asked to come back on.
Yeah.
So
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
he
he
must
should.
have liked us. But yes, so
Maybe we'll charge next time.
part of the reason why we got Michael on is because bird flu has reached Australia now and infected
So sad.
ducks, penguins, fur seals. Yeah, it's really, really awful. So Michael's a bit of an expert on the topic. So we were really pleased to have him on so people can listen through us talking about headlines and then get to the to Michael.
Yeah.
But where we wanted to start is something that we discussed last week, but because it's such a sort of revolting story, but also salacious because it's about the AFL, etc., it keeps rolling on, is the alleged incidents of sexual assault and harassment by 5 Sydney Swans players.
At least.
The headline that we've got is from the Herald Sun: 3 women allege assault following Sydney Swans hotel incident. And this is just a story of absolute sexism, misogyny, the culture of, you know, these AFL players who are used to, you know, getting what they want, raised in and, you know, working in an environment that treats women less. I was listening to an ABC podcast where the person who was doing the interview, he talked about like, of course, these men think that they can treat women however they want because the AFL treats women like shit. The AFLW is totally underfunded. They don't get all of these televised, you know, shows or whatever. They're paid far less than their male counterparts. And so institutionally, culturally, it's like sexism's just integrated. And maybe now the AFL, you know, talks about women and inclusivity and all the rest of it. But it's not actually that long ago that it was just normal actually for these types of stories to come out and for players not to be, you know, punished for any of their behaviour. Like Wayne Carey, you know, this abusive, violent man, is a former AFL player, you know, domestic violence perpetrator. He's still an all-star Australian AFL Hall of Famer, a commentator on, you know, the broadcasters. So, like, you know, they all talk about like, oh, we're so shocked. Where did this come from? Like, it's always been there, and we exist in a society which treats women like absolute garbage. So it's not just an AFL problem. It's a problem of a society that is just dripping in sexism.
Yeah, and it's the entitlement of these men. Like they're private school educated overwhelmingly, hanging around. They're treated like gods by the fans, by the league. They earn a lot of money. Like their income, you know, puts them in the upper echelons of society. And they go to nightclubs and bars and so on, and just like everybody fawns on them. So this sense of entitlement, of celebrity, of just being above the fray and capable of getting anyone you want, and like, yeah, you just see it. The Brownlow event, like all the conversation is just about the women, what they're wearing, what they look like, and even when that's like, you know, reported in a way that's like supposedly like by women about women, like it's still like absolute misogynistic, and it's just like women on display.
Yeah.
You know, this is just the whole industry, and then like some of the allegations that are coming out now, like using women's bodies as like a place to do drugs off. Like women are not fucking tables. Like it's disgusting. It's just like, oh, look, we own you. You're in this room. We've paid for you. We own you. We'll fucking treat you however we want.
Yeah.
And obviously it's all alleged, but you know, it's just fucking disgusting. And like, it's good to see these three women have the courage to take it on. Their lawyers are saying they're facing harassment and intimidation already. So we can only imagine what's coming. Yeah. So it's good that they've had the courage to take it on. And it took a while for the AFL and the Swans in particular to actually like focus on their experience as the primary, you know, alleged victims, but at least to talk about them in that way. But we're sort of getting there.
Yeah. And no, it's only just, I think, yesterday that they were like disinvited from the Brownlow medal
those players
ceremonies. Like, wouldn't that be like one of the first things that you do? Like, I think, it's just like the whole situation, like the fact that these men, you know, despite allegedly, you know, so there's the alleged incident of assault, but then also just the context in which the incident itself happened is that these players hired women to come to their hotel rooms to be topless waitresses. So even if they hadn't like sexually assaulted these women, they think that they can hire women for money to take off their shirts and serve them drinks. Like, this is objectification, exploitation, it's sexism. And yeah, like I said before, like this is the culture that we live in, where people think that they can purchase women's bodies for their own entertainment and their own, you know, sexual pleasure.
Yeah, and I think like reading some of the discourse online is like it's really disgusting. I saw someone yesterday like blaming the women for like going out and seeking out these men to like, you know, promote themselves and whatever, and then like bringing up like the website was like it said something about like discreet hiring or whatever, and it's like, well then if it's so discreet, then like why are you going to the media about this?
Oh my God.
It's like what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
discretion doesn't include like alleged sexual assault and like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't give you a free pass.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you can. Yeah.
And now there's a situation where so it was Mad Monday, and so the players that haven't made it into the wild card or the finals or whatever, they just get to go out and drink and celebrate the end of their season.
Like fuckwits,
which has historically been a place where a lot of, you know, terrible things have happened, like costumes, like blackface, etc. Well, Richmond players have been filmed basically doing like a pantomime of the like alleged incidents. So it's just, you know, to add sort of insult to injury, just the mockery of the whole situation. So yeah, I think like definitely the media discussion around this has left a lot to be desired. The AFL integrity like guy is a former Sydney Swans like executive or coach or whatever. So yeah, I think like it's a reflection of a pretty bad situation where misogynistic attitudes are rising in young men. There's more young men reporting that they think that like feminism needs to be violently resisted. There's an increase in like assaults and harassment in schools by male students towards both teachers and students. There's been increased rates of domestic violence. We talked about the sporting industry's relationship to gambling and that relationship to domestic violence as well. So it's pretty grim.
And there was a story in Sydney of the Scots boys who
that's right
raped. I think the alleged allegation is they raped. Is it 3 people? Oh God, I butchered the story. But anyway, there's an allegation of private school kids in Sydney doing very similar things. So this is just like a pattern of behaviour. Totally. And the irony is the AFL is probably the most like liberal kind of woke corporation of like sporting code in the world. Like they have diversity round, they have gay round, they have all this Indigenous rounds, multiple of them, all this stuff. But it's actually one of the whitest sports, I reckon, globally. Like, and it's getting more white. Like, less Indigenous players are playing because they face such extraordinary racism, like what Bobby Hill faced, Ash Johnson at Collingwood, you know, and other places, other players at other teams. Like, real racism. There's still not a single out gay AFL player who plays AFL, which is like extraordinary, like statistically improbable, impossible.
Totally.
And yeah, the women's game is treated like a joke. The commentators are all absolute brickhead morons who are only there because they're like obviously part of old boys networks. You know, they're all forwards who have not a thinking brain cell. So it's like, it's a really capitalistic, conservative, right-wing kind of institution, despite all its like liberal woke kind of facade. And it needs to be really challenged.
Definitely.
Okay, so our next headline is about Australian democracy. This is a stat from the Australian Democracy Network, I think it's called. And they did some research and they found that 64% of all lobbyists in Australia, and there's about 714, I think, lobbyists, 64% of those used to be MPs. And this includes premiers like Anna Bligh, former Queensland Premier, Labor left hero.
Mineral Council.
No, Banks.
Oh, the
she works
Banks.
for the Australian Banks Association.
Sure.
A real left-wing Heartstone kind of position there. Stephen Conroy, Christopher Pyne, Julie Bishop, just like luminaries of politics, you know, in this country, for what passes for them anyway. They all work in the private industry and they all segue really smoothly. There's just this revolving door between politicians and the corporate lobby groups.
So about 300 were advisors to MPs, and then like the other categories of public servant, minister, or other politician. But yeah, it's like we sort of talked about it last week with the gambling. It's like
totally.
They learn all of the insider stuff. They have all of this information, and then they just like, yes, I would like to make like seven figures helping the gambling industry or the fossil fuel industry or the banks make more money.
Like Chris Pyne was the defense industry minister, and then he just went and worked for the defense industry.
Yeah, totally. Would you believe? I mean, like we talk about it as a revolving door. Also, this is Deep Cut that reported on this, so well done, Deep Cut again. But like we talk about it as a revolving door, but like the door doesn't even have to revolve. Like the current fucking resources minister is literally, the office is in the like Woodside building. Like it's
so it's the same door you're saying.
It's not a revolving door. They literally enter through the same fucking door.
Oh, that's good.
They live in the same building.
Easy access.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry. Next headline.
Please don't be sorry.
No, I shan't be. We've got, I guess Penny Wong has increased the statement meter from concern to outrage. So the headline now.
Well, there has been a genocide going on, so it's good that she's outraged.
Yeah, I don't think it's about the genocide. It's like her concern, her outrage. So the headline is Australia outraged as Israel rejects Zombie Franklin, Francom criminal investigation while ambassador decries haters. So pretty much what's happened is obviously Israel fucking bombed an Australian aid worker, and then the rescuers who went to provide aid to Zombie twice after that, which is like, that's insane, first of all. And they were like, it's not clear. I mean, the markings weren't clear. We didn't know they were aid workers. And it's like, we've all seen the fucking photos. It's like emblazoned everywhere on the car. And it says that they're from the World Kitchen. And so, instead of doing something about that, or perhaps not sending, weapons parts to Israel about that, the big kind of Labor response was like, oh, well, we're quite concerned and we're going to ask for an investigation into that. And Israel announced that, no, we're not doing a criminal investigation. So now, instead of doing something again, we're no longer concerned, we're outraged. But kind of like in the midst of all of this is like some of the like the most hardcore, like fanatic Zionists have been saying like, our outrage is ridiculous and like anti-Semitic, and like that's the thing that we should be concerned about. Like, these people will be satisfied with absolutely nothing, and that like we're doing nothing. Like we're doing nothing. We know we're not going to do fucking anything about this, and these people still are not satisfied with that.
It gives you an insight into the level of self-confidence and institutional impunity by which the Israeli army operates, because this is these are foreigners, like not Palestinians, who've been murdered blatantly by the Israeli army. And they've done a review and found nothing to see here. And there would have been a fair bit of diplomatic pressure to find like some negative. Like they could have thrown some shit kicker soldier under the bus, whatever. They've decided there's no problem here because one of the security guards employed by the World Kitchen looked like a Hamas agent, i.e. they were probably Arab, maybe they had a beard, you know. All y'all look alike kind of thing. So that's the self-defense. So imagine how they treat Palestinians, you know, like imagine, I mean, we don't have to imagine, we've seen it, you know, but like this is the level of impunity that Israel operates with. So is there any wonder why they commit a genocide and get away with it? And in fact, in Australia, we've got a royal commission into why people don't love the genocide.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, that's the kind of like undercurrent behind all of this is there's a fucking genocide going on. And we asked for maybe an investigation into, you know, the bombing of aid workers, Australian aid workers. And then like, this is all of the focus. It's anyways, it is fantastic. Next headline, this is one that I wanted to talk about. And it's about the Victorian Labor government, Ben Carroll, as Premier, has announced that we're going to get free dental. But I do want to talk about that a little bit because it's not...
I need free dental.
I know, so do I.
Should I vote for the Labor Party?
I don't think so.
Well,
this is actually something that shows, like, yet again, that the fewer people who vote for Labor, the more vaguely left-wing their policies will be. Like we saw that in Queensland.
Like the 50-cent fares.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they win? They didn't win that election, though.
No, they did not win that election. But like, the less people that vote for them, the more stuff we'll get, I guess, which is, I mean, that's nice. So don't vote for Labor and then maybe you'll get free dental.
Good advice.
But the thing is, like, so this is an election commitment. So they won't do it now. They're in government now. They have an overwhelming majority. This would be supported both in the upper house and the lower house. Like they could get this through now. Instead of doing it now, you know, Ben Carroll's hiring 200 police officers to harass homeless people, announcing royal commissions into the CFMEU. Just like, you know, he's doing a bunch of stuff, just not this one, because he wants to dangle this like a little carrot over our head if we vote for them. But if you look into what is the announcement, it's not actually really free dental. It's like there's going to be 10 clinics in all of Victoria. There's 7 million people in Victoria. 3 clinics are going to serve the entirety of regional Victoria, which is insane.
So there'll be one like in the Western District.
There's one in Shepparton,
You'll have to catch a plane. Like that's the only way you'll be able to get fucking dental care.
Probably people in Mildura will just never see it.
Exactly. And then also like it's not really free. Like you won't be able to do all of the really expensive stuff like braces or orthodontics and all that kind of thing.
What? So it's just like a cleaning service or something?
Like, it's checkups. You can do checkups. They'll do fillings and stuff like that.
So they probably won't do my
good.
cap.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
But like presumably there'd be a long waiting time. Like somebody was telling me there's like 2 million Victorians who need dental care like immediately.
Yeah.
And this thing won't be able to cover that. Like 10 clinics.
No,
2 million divided by 10 is quite a long.
Yeah, exactly. But also line. Like Australians spend $12 billion on dental, and then like most of that is just by individuals.
Yeah.
And then like as fucking 15% of it is covered by like health insurance.
And it's like if you have really bad dental stuff, it's like you can get blood diseases.
Yeah, you can die from that.
The thing is, like, the point that I would make about this is like, this is why elections are so important. Like even with all the limits of capitalist democracy, the reason they hate elections is because the way you win elections is by actually offering voters what they want. And guess what? Working class people want free services, like functional services that are essential. That's why politicians the world over are trying to limit the number of elections that happen. That's why socialists oppose the fixed 4-year terms, because it just means less elections. Elections mean the politicians have to actually think about what voters want. Every other time they're thinking about what capital wants. And that's, you know, and this is the thing. And the stronger the left is, the more pressure there is on them to provide left-wing policies. And it's indicative whenever Labor's in trouble. They push forward progressive policies to try and win votes
Yeah.
because they know
Yeah.
what workers want. They could have done this at any point in the last 12 years, but
Yeah.
it's only when their careers are at stake, their parliamentary
Yeah.
futures, that they think, oh, maybe we should give the plebs basic healthcare
Totally.
or a fragment of basic
yeah,
healthcare.
And only if you fucking vote for us.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
like, in the meantime, we'll get rid of the fucking work from home stuff that is also overwhelmingly popular. Like, it's just ridiculous. And he's like, again, maybe I'll do that next year.
And then something that most people would like is a decrease in their rental amount.
Are we getting that under Labor?
No. So this headline's from ABC News. Rents increase to more than half median take-home pay across capitals. So rents are going up. It's like pretty remarkable. They've been going on about how house prices are falling and how this is actually terrible for the economy. So I wonder if they're happy now that in place of the house prices falling, the rent. So, does this balance out the economy in the eyes of these
I think so.
people?
I reckon. Like, I saw Anthony Albanese post something last night, like the same day that this report came out about like rents. Like, you have to be earning $130,000 to have like rent considered to be affordable for you, and then even then, only in Adelaide. That's crazy. Like, even
Well,
if
everyone's
you're earning,
desperate to go live. Yeah.
yeah, if you're earning $130,000
Don't
in
attack
Sydney.
Adelaide.
It's still, like, by definition, you're in housing stress, like, which is insane. But, like, yeah, he was like, he posted last night, like, oh, we're doing so well when it comes to housing. It's like, actually, this is, like, objectively one of the worst positions we've ever been in, ever. So, yeah, there's tables and stuff. You can have a look at the Everybody's Home report. It's just like really, really bad. Like, that's all. Like, and it's getting fucking worse, like, really quickly. There was, we like the rents are going up like $50 a week now, which is like, that's just, wages aren't. It's just fucked.
And at the same time that house prices or rental prices are increasing, there's councils all around the place that are just treating homeless people like absolute dirt and garbage.
Yeah.
So the Moreton Bay Council was found to have breached the Human Rights Act for evicting homeless people from their tents.
Yeah. Yeah, that was yeah, like two Queensland councils just like literally bulldozed the tents of people sleeping rough.
And why did they bulldoze these camps?
You'd have to ask them.
But it's the spot that they've like slated for the Olympic Stadium.
Well, so this is actually different. So there was going to be an event that was going to make that council a lot of money. So they had to get rid of all of the rough sleepers there. But now the court has found what they've done to be a breach of their human rights, which, like, naturally, of course it is. So the Moreton Bay Council has responded by opening a camp in a park just out the front of one of the new like state government's developments for the Olympic Games, which I think is honestly quite genius. They're like, actually, and they're saying like, this is a state government. They're quite literally passing the buck to the state government for not providing enough funding for housing and whatever, which is like accurate. I mean, councils have a lot of money in Queensland as well and can provide housing, but they won't. They're saying it's a state government responsibility, and we're going to put all these people right out the front of your fucking sporting complex for the Olympics.
The Communist Party did a similar thing of that in the 30s in America. They set up like a camp of unemployed and homeless people out the front of the White House in Washington, D.C.
It's very smart.
Yeah, it's a good stunt. The final headline we have here, it's two headlines really, from The Australian. It's the same edition of The Australian. I think it was yesterday. So one was about Pauline Hanson's heroic stand for free speech. The headline is "Permission to Speak. Hanson's fight is ours." And it's from The Australian.
Beautiful.
It's all about Hanson wanting to challenge her conviction as a racist on multiple levels now, in relation to her comments about Marine Faruqi. She is going to go all the way to the High Court to defend the right to free speech. And the Australian's just talking about how it's actually disgraceful, the limits on her free speech. It's shocking. It's wokeness gone mad. People should be able to say what they think, which, I think that people should be able to say what they think, but then there should also be political accountability when you say something bigoted. But then in the same edition of the newspaper, there's an article, Federal Court Judge calls for High Court free speech rethink.
Wow.
And this is a judge, a right-wing judge, going on a tirade about how disgusting it is that people in Australia have the right to freedom of speech and the right of freedom of political communication. And their example of that was the Palestine rallies, which were basically anti-Jewish pogroms, according to this judge, and should have been banned. And it's actually disgraceful that people have the right to speak out against genocide. So in the same newspaper, the so-called free speech advocate, you have the newspaper advocating for the right to be an absolute racist on one hand, and then advocating for no right to political free speech for people against genocide and war.
So let's just do a little bit of an experiment here. So say you're on my right, Geordie.
Yep, sure.
Omar, you're on the left of
Always.
me. One side deserves more free speech and the other side deserves less. So which side do we think?
I mean, it just makes sense to me, really.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Geordie gets the right to speak more on the
Obviously.
podcast now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the hypocrisy about the free speech warriors. Like, they remember they all defended 18C and they opposed 18C. That's the limit on free speech, right? They opposed the inclusion of racism as a constitutionally. So they wanted to defend the right to free speech, which actually I think we socialists should have defended as well. We don't think the state should be regulating our speech. We should be fighting for our right to speak. But then they also want to ban people from protesting, ban people from speaking out. And this is the politics. This is the ruling class's politics. They're cynical. They're not universalists. They're not genuine defenders of anything. They want to crush the left. They want to crush democracy, all the while claiming to be victims when we fight back.
Yeah, really wonderful stuff. We do have another kind of double headline, which is also quite funny. These people are just incredibly far right. So it makes sense that they want, the right to say bigoted shit and then silence anyone speaking against
Bigotry.
bigoted shit. Yeah. But the headline is, never mind the Nazis, coalition says to the brethren, just show us the money. The exclusive brethren, now currently the Plymouth Christian brethren or something like that. I don't know. They changed their names for some reason. I think exclusive brethren was a bit too on the nose, like a little bit too culty in the name. So now they're a bit less culty.
Plymouth Brisbane has a real street cred kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's easier. And they paid Nazis to promote I guess Nazi shit that is aligned with their school of thought. They're like incredibly right wing Christian cult. The news article says so-called Christian, and I thought that was quite funny, just in and of itself. It's like, what are you saying here? Like,
The heretics.
Yeah, like, are you the like exclusive Christians? Like, why is that in there? But yeah, so they paid. They're big donors to the coalition. They campaigned for them during the election.
We had heaps of them in Thomastown.
And so they paid the neo-Nazis to intimidate politicians.
Yeah. So to follow them around and heckle them and stuff like that. But also to promote their ideas on their various Instagrams and shit like that, which also makes sense. But then also, so there's a Senate inquiry into this, what happened, and the coalition has just put people in the inquiry to ask them really nice questions about the things that they do and stuff like that, which is quite
the charity.
Yeah. And then anyone asking actual questions of the people who funded the Nazis for the election are being told that actually, no, I don't represent the people who fund the Nazis. I represent just a charity of the people who funded the Nazis for the thing. So I can't speak to that actually.
And it's not like they've cut the ties. The next headline is Brethren feed Angus Taylor, Tony Abbott days after Nazi revelations. Not
Tony Abbott.
Yeah, so Angus Taylor and Tony Abbott, they like to ride bicycles, and they've turned it into an image of really supporting the community because they do these charity bike rides or whatever. And then they had the Plymouth exclusive brethren fuckers,
whatever they are,
feeding
so-called
them.
Christians.
So it's that was just the other day.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're not ashamed to take food from Nazi lovers.
Yeah.
They are. Can you say that they
No,
are? No,
I don't.
okay,
Yeah, I don't. I think that's
Allegedly.
Alleged. Yeah. Freedom of speech. I don't think we have that.
Riding out the party line.
Well, we're here with Michael Dulaney, who is an award-winning journalist and author of the new book Sentinels. Thanks so much for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
It's a good time to have you on the podcast, basically because it's a bad time in the natural
world.
environment. We are in a situation now where bird flu has reached Australia. It's passed to mammals, fur seal. They're saying that maybe the seal colony on Kangaroo Island is going to go extinct. So it's pretty terrible. And your new book deals with infectious diseases and the crossover between animals and humans. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to talk about bird flu, the horrifying reality that we're all facing.
Awesome.
Well, yeah. Should we start there? Could you tell us a bit about this bird flu that we're seeing across all around the world, and the virus itself and its potential impacts?
Yeah, so this strain of bird flu is named H5N1. It has circulated in the poultry system globally since the late 90s, basically. Like, it emerged in southern China in 1996 from poultry farms there, and then caused a series of really devastating outbreaks in those first years. So most famously, like in Hong Kong, where they had to cull all of their farmed birds, basically. They depopulated their entire farmed bird system in Hong Kong in 1997. And then after that, it continued to just circulate globally, basically, in poultry farms. It sort of caused these spillovers every now and then. There were some particularly bad ones in the early 2000s in Vietnam and Thailand that led to, again, poultry deaths and some other infections in other species of animals, and also some deaths in people. But this outbreak that we're dealing with now, the one that's in the news, that was a mutation that emerged in 2021. And in sort of Asia and parts of Europe. And that was different because it was a mutation that allowed this virus to jump into hundreds of new bird species that had never previously been susceptible, which, gave it the ability to spread further than it ever had, essentially, and to reach more of the animal kingdom. And in addition to that, it also has this ability to infect dozens of mammals now. So you mentioned seals. There was a really, so when it emerged in 2021, it just started spreading around the world, basically. It just sort of marched around the globe.
Ended up in Antarctica.
Yeah. So when I was writing the book, I was watching it spread, basically, and it just seemed inevitable that it would sort of ever reach here. But everywhere it lands, it causes these really catastrophic and devastating mortalities in animal species. So in Argentina had a really notable one where 95% of that year's elephant seal pups were killed by bird flu. So there's these really sad accounts from people who just study seals their whole lives, pinnipeds. They return to this beach where they study these seals after they'd go there every year for the breeding season to do their research, and they rocked up and there was just dead seals everywhere. It was this catastrophic horrifying ecological thing they're confronted with. So yeah, that's why everyone's so concerned about this virus, basically. And when I was writing the book, there was real concern because I was sort of, most of my time with scientists and stuff for the research for the book was in sort of 2024. And there was real concern at that point that, especially among Australian scientists, that it was going to reach Antarctica, because it was sort of circling around bird and seal colonies and stuff in sub-Antarctica, so all these islands that are around there. And eventually it did reach Antarctica, caused mass mortalities, and now it's here. And
can you give us a sense of how many birds we're talking about dying, roughly, obviously, just
yeah. Well, I mean, there's something 280 million birds is a number that I see that have been killed by this virus globally. I mean, that number's I think you have to include culled birds in that, because obviously
like I was saying, it comes from the poultry system, right? So it comes from like farmed birds, and we obviously keep birds in these like extraordinary numbers.
Cages.
Yeah, like, you know, a highly productive industrial chicken shed can have like hundreds of thousands of birds in it. You know what I mean? So it's like this sort of petri dish where the virus circulates.
And so the situation's not like, you know, it was during the COVID lockdown, right? Where you can actually close borders and, you know, impact who comes into the country. Birds don't recognize the borders of man.
Yes.
And so you can't screen them for fever and whatever before they fly in. But the government, as I understand it, there has been some vaccination, especially of the little penguin colony in Victoria. They say that it's because it's easier to do the penguins because they go into the burrows, the same burrows each night. So you can do the thing of the 2 vaccinations. But is it the case that the government has done enough to prepare for the bird flu, or do you think they could have done more? Is the penguin thing just because it's a bit easier, or is it also because it's tourism? Like, is there favour, like, you know, are some species favoured?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a complicated one, right? Like the virus doesn't like emerge here. It's not necessarily an Australia only problem. We're just the last ones to get it because we're kind of like isolated from these like flyways where migratory birds fly and spread it. But I mean, there's always more to be done, right? Like on the environment, like you can't write about the climate crisis and ecology and stuff without being like there's so many people I talk to in the book, not even just about bird flu, but just like in general. Like the book is looking at this global problem of spillover between animals and humans and the ways that like capitalism and human impacts on the environment drive that happening. And like pretty much everyone I talk to, every scientist I talk to, every person in wildlife is like, yeah, we don't have enough funding and support. You know what I mean? That's like a global problem. I mean, like here, there's like wildlife agencies that are asking for like, they've in the last, I think, week or two, they've sort of come out and started being like, we need something like $200 million wildlife recovery package to like help these species rebound. Because I was like reading this morning that the federal government has estimated that like 1 in 5 Australian bird and mammal species is at risk from this virus. So like there's like really iconic animal species that are like actually in danger of going extinct or having real severe population declines, you know? And so like the more would be like, you know, creating resilience in those populations, I guess, like having more systemic approach to it. Because like right now it's like volunteer, like in the book, I went out with like duck catchers who, you know, like there's in the bird flu chapter, I went out with researchers who were, this is in like 2024, they were like looking for the arrival of this virus into Australia. So they were like monitoring birds and migratory birds. And so we were catching ducks. We were out at like 4 a.m. in the freezing cold and the dark. I was extremely unprepared for all of this. I do not have any of the gear required to do this work, but I went out anyway.
No wellies.
No wellies. I was wearing a crappy pair of overalls and a sweater. Anyway, you know, I forgot to bring water. That's how unprepared I was. Awesome. Anyway, you know, but the people there, like, the scientists were there. They were pretty much the only scientists in the country that were like studying bird flu full time at that time. But the people that were there were just like volunteers. They were like really passionate bird watchers who had like given up their time to like come out and use their skills in catching birds that they normally do for like banding the legs of shorebirds and stuff, like as their hobby. They were like doing that to do disease surveillance here.
And, you know, you say the thing about people asking for $200 million in funding. We did an episode last week about the gambling industry in Australia and the like massive amounts of money these poker machine, like hotels, casinos, sports betting agencies make. The fact that the revenue of the AFL, you know, and the NRL is not taxed because they're non-for-profits. It's like, there actually is a huge amount of money. $200 million is a drop in the ocean in terms of preparedness. So I wanted to quote from the book. You say, watching it spread, I have come to believe that bird flu is the archetypal disease of this new age, the one that represents all of our failed efforts to address the growing threat of spillover, a disease that links farming, unrestrained industry, political intransience, and environmental exploitation in a way that threatens hundreds of species, including our own. It scares me more than anything else. And I wanted to pull out that paragraph because I think that it's a really good way of actually summing up the book that you've written, a book that shows the impact of unrestrained capitalism on both human and animal and just the environment in general. So can you tell us a bit about like why you wrote the book?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so it sort of has its origins in like 2019. Like I was living in Sydney at the time, and I was, we'd all remember like the Black Summer bushfires of that year. And so like that was this moment of probably the worst eco-anxiety I've ever felt in my life. Like I've written about the environment and animals and stuff like for my whole writing career, but like walking to work every day where there's ash falling over you and the skies are like, Blade Runner red. And like, I had friends who were having asthma attacks that didn't have asthma, like stuff that's
the fire alarms in all the buildings going off because there was
smoke.
It was horrible. So like, I mean, and like now 7 years later, like those images are like terribly common, right? Like we're seeing the same thing in
Europe,
Canada and in Europe right now. But anyway, that was this real like intense, like I was so anxious every day, so panicked. And there was also this time of like growing protest, like about the climate. We had like the school strikes for climate. There was like I had a genuine sense that like stuff was happening. And then COVID hit. And so like, I was in this position where like that all just like came to a halt because everyone was locked inside. And this terrifying new pandemic reality was on us. And I was like trying to work out where the hell that had come from. And the more I read about it, it just became so clear almost immediately that that it was intimately linked with the environment and with animals. Like 2 out of every 3 diseases in people comes from animals. And the drivers of that is usually always human intervention in some way, capitalist intervention. So like the topic like united those two things that I was like dealing with, like the two most pressing things at the time, which were like the climate crisis and the spread of disease, and the need for like a more political lens on this, essentially, like an understanding, a deeper understanding of the drivers of this stuff.
Totally. I think like my favorite part of your book is like you do make the explicit link between like it's not just like random human interventions that have happened to occur and whatever, like it's you make the explicit link, and we'll probably talk about it later, between capitalism, like the economic model that we function under, and like the destruction of the environment for profit, and how that links with all of the like the shit that we're experiencing, not just in the environment but like with health and everything. But also you talk about, like you kind of alluded to it before, like the money required, like the amount of money that we're investing in, and the amount of studies that have been done on like the cell structure of the coronavirus versus prevention, and like you talk about it with flying foxes and stuff like that, and it's like because it's fucking profitable to make a vaccine and all that kind of stuff. It's not profitable to prevent these things from happening, and managing society a little bit better.
Totally. It's like managing the symptoms rather than the root causes, and it's not that you don't need to manage the symptoms, you know what I mean? It's not like an either or thing, but like even with like part of the thing I've been trying to get people to understand with bird flu is that is the stuff we were talking about earlier about the poultry system, like because not that it's not going to change the response that we need to do here or elsewhere. Like we still need to do all those things, but I don't think you can have like a full understanding of like why this is happening in Australia right now without understanding that it comes from a massively exploitive system of farming, basically, and intensified farming that has only grown more intensive in like recent decades. Because like without that understanding, like how do you sort of address the root drivers of it,
That's right. And I think for a lot of people, when they think about like climate change or climate catastrophe, they think about it through a very like simplified lens, which is like carbon dioxide and methane in the air leading to global warming, which is definitely true, and that's one aspect of it. But there's so many others, like the deforestation, like Rob Wallace talked about it, I think, in relation to COVID, a kind of Marxist epidemiologist, how by chopping down all these forests, we're getting deeper and deeper into places where humans have rarely been, and we're actually exposing ourselves to new viruses. And then the factory farming thing, pigs as well, like, putting together so many animals in a small space pretty much just guarantees that things evolve very quickly and develop. It's like a city for animals.
Yeah.
But unlike human beings, there's no like healthcare being provided. It's either like exploit them to the point of death or just cull them.
Totally.
And either way, it's totally barbaric. So there's so many other metrics on which climate destruction, and in the ocean as well. Like, I don't know if your research covered that, but there's so much stuff being done in terms of intensive fish farming and so on, which depletes oceans and changes their fundamental makeup, which means, you know, devastating impacts in the long run.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's helpful to think about this stuff as you kind of talked about it there, which is like there's sort of two broad and related ways that capitalism drives these new diseases to spill over into humans. One is the indirect case, like the Rob Wallace thing, which is like deforestation or like changing ecosystems in some way through capitalist expansion, extraction, like mining, building road, I don't know, all of this sort of stuff where you change the relationship between species that are there in the wild, or you push cities into like areas where there's formerly wild populations are coming into more contact with people. That's sort of like an indirect route. And then there's the direct route, which we've already talked about, which is like intensified industrial spaces, like of farming, for example, like where things just like come out of those systems in horrifying intensity, as we're seeing.
Well, one of the most horrifying chapters in the book was the one about the pig farming, which was horrifying for a few reasons. One, because of the descriptions of rivers of pig shit and ponds of pig shit just surrounding the industrial pig farms. But then also just the way that, these viruses spread through the pig farm populations, and the visceral description of like tens of thousands of pigs dying, mass abortion events of pigs. Like, I recommend reading the book, but it's like that chapter in particular, I was like, oh
rough.
my God. But like, so what is it about like industrial farming which sets up the sort of the perfect conditions for this spread of these viruses and diseases?
Yeah. So like, the pig chapter's about a virus that it doesn't actually impact humans. That chapter's about disease-proof pigs. So there's these like really highly advanced attempts in the US in particular to like develop a pig that is resistant to a virus that's called PRRS, PRRS, porcine respiratory and reproductive virus, and like that. As you said, like that is this. It's comes from the industrial system, and it just sort of circulates in farms, and it doesn't like cause mass mortalities in the pigs necessarily like a bird flu does. Like when a bird flu, when an H5N1 kind of bird flu gets into a chicken shed, like all the birds die. Like there's 100% mortality. It's like horrifying. This is like this low level virus. It just like circulates, but it causes like higher than normal rates of like sows aborting their fetuses, basically. Like that's the respiratory part of the virus, you know? So it's like this really devastating, it's like one of the most costly diseases in global hog farming, basically. And so the chapter's about these high tech efforts to like essentially genetically modify, genetically engineer a pig species that is resistant to that virus, you know, which is fascinating.
And change nothing about the way, the things that caused the virus. Just like maybe if the pigs can just ignore it.
Yeah. Like it's both. That chapter was fascinating, right? Because it is both like a really horrifying thing and also just like a really fascinating thing as someone who's like a very curious person and like interested in the world. Like it unites like this really amazing like human technical achievement with also like the inability to like maybe address the like the underlying stuff that's driving it in the first place, because it basically that virus emerged in global hog farming simultaneously in two different places. It emerged in America and in like Europe at the same time, and the reason for that emergence was basically like that it came out in the 80s, and the reason for that was because in the 80s like hog farming just like went through this intensification that was like unparalleled up to that time, where you started to have these like concentrated feedlot operations where just like hundreds of thousands of pigs were like kept in the same spot. You know, it created this sort of genetic soup for a virus to circulate. I guess to like answer your question, it's like when a virus that is like endlessly adaptable, like these things that could just essentially can just like run through and like mutate and find new ways to like infect something, an organism basically. If you like set up a system where that organism gets into that system, and you've just given it all these chances to like run the numbers, basically. This is like a supercomputer to like run the numbers at speeds that are like unfathomable to us almost. You create these conditions for like, you know, horrifying things to emerge, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Which, as a writer, is also fascinating to me. You know, like it's like I talk to these researchers who are like this one researcher in that chapter was just like marveling at the kind of like intelligence of a virus. You know, like the ability for this non-thinking, you know, thing that's not even technically alive in some senses to like kind of outthink our most advanced methods of stopping it, basically.
And then, so like the way that capitalism develops sort of allows for the spread of these viruses across the globe, because we have these big industrial, like, you know, chicken and pig farming, other animal farming, whatever. We have... so they're like perfect conditions for these viruses to adapt, learn, mutate, etc. Then all of these different parts of industry have to like relate to one another. So you describe the sort of thing of, you know, the same companies will take the feed from one farm to another farm. You know, they slaughter the pig here, they cut up the pig here, or the chicken, or whatever it is. Then live animal trading all across the globe. So then it means that countries have these direct interactions. So the nature of like industrial capitalism, the sort of, you know, the quickness of it, you know, in the same way that like to make a car, you have to go all around the world, the just-in-time production, this all creates its own dynamics. Well, the dynamic of trade under capitalism allows for so much of a spread. Now, we in any society will need global trade and we'll need farming and all the rest of it. But because the bottom line is the production of profits, there's never a thought about how do we make this safe for humans and for animals and for the environment. It's all just about how do we rationalize this for profit making.
Yeah. Or like, how do we, like the fascinating thing for me was in what you're talking about. One of the fascinating things is like how that process is spreading even into like the sort of deepest, most fundamental parts of biological life, you know, like there's a constant, if you read about the history of intensive agriculture, like I'm blanking on the stats, but it's like, you know, a pig in the hog system now in America, like an average sow will like deliver like 3 more pigs per litter, you know, than they did like 30 years ago. And or like a chicken, you know, farmed now will like reach its maturity in like 6 weeks. Where it used to take like 3 months. And like if you
and is that because of GM stuff or
no, it's just like selective breeding. It's just like intense like industrial selective breeding at industrial scale, basically. Like yeah, chickens are a good one where like that you, in some senses, like a farmed chicken, you can almost think of it, I think of it almost as like a kind of agro-technology thing, like a biotechnology or something. Like, you know, I have a part in the book where I talk about like if you put a chicken skeleton from today, like a broiler chicken, which is like the meat chickens, if you put a skeleton of that next to a chicken from the medieval period, it's like twice the size. Yeah. Its bones are like warped and bowed. It reaches maturity in like 6 weeks compared to whatever it was 3 months before. It does that on like half the feed. And there's just like intensification of all of the processes of life. Its muscles grow bigger and fatter and stuff. And so it's just sort of like reaching into all these fundamental processes, which are like fascinating and horrifying at the same time, you know? Yeah.
Well, another thing that I found fascinating is your description of what you talk about platform capitalism. Can you tell us a bit about what this is?
Yeah. So that's in the pig chapter. So
you can tell the pig chapter
you really like the pig
Yeah. I like the pigs. Who doesn't like
Poor
pigs?
People should watch the film Okja, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like, so that's, as I said, it's about this porcine reproductive virus. And that chapter, so the company that's essentially commercializing those disease-proof pigs is a company called Genus, which is like the biggest provider of hog genetics in the world, basically. I'm blanking on the numbers, but like, you know, they provide a massive portion of the pigs to like hog farms all around the world, you know? And like when I say they provide the genetics, it's like they develop pigs that can, like we were saying earlier, sort of grow faster and fatter and have more babies at a certain amount of time. But they, so they're trying to commercialize this disease-proof pig, and they're like in the process of doing that globally. So a pig that like is resistant to that virus. But when I was like researching this company, one of the fascinating things about it is that they sell their pigs on a royalty model. So
Amazing.
like, so instead of
subscription pigs.
Yeah. So instead of you know, like a traditional sale would be like,
Pig.
you know, here's our, we've developed this amazing
Would you
pig.
like a pig?
I would actually.
Yeah, we've developed this pig that can have like 2 extra pigs per litter.
Yeah.
And you will pay us, you know, like 20% more for that pig or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. In a royalty sale, you sort of get the pigs for less, but then there's all this sophisticated like proprietary tracking software. There's like there's like a platform called Genus One, where they can track like the weight of the pigs at birth and how many pigs were delivered and all these metrics.
What?
They track that on the platform, and then you pay a royalty based on that
Yeah.
performance. So you essentially like are paying, like you say, a subscription model or like a rent for these. Like
Spotify for the pig.
you're essentially
Yeah.
renting the performance of a sow's uterus, is how I put
Yeah.
it in the book. You know,
Yeah.
which you know is the
It's like a cybernetic pig. Like it's got all these chips in it that are tracking it. Or how do they monitor it?
I think they just monitor at the farm gate, you know, like
Yeah.
the farmer like tracks it, you know, at birth. And they put it in the system, and then pricing flows from that. And because you know, they're essentially making a corporate bet on, you know, the results of their
They're wondrous pigs.
exactly delivering or whatever, you know.
Those poor
Yeah.
pigs, honestly.
But it's like, you know, they say in their shareholder reports, like in their annual reports,
Yeah.
that they can deliver like much higher profit from that model
Yeah.
compared to a traditional sale. And the platform, I guess the platform capitalism part is that you're like locked into these, as a farmer, you're like locked into these copyrighted pigs basically.
Totally. Yeah. Because
And-
that's the end goal, is like a monopoly on whatever. And it's not like, it's interesting that it's so like pervasive in like agriculture and farming
It
and
is,
all
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Because like John Deere do that with their fucking tractors.
Yeah.
Like there are, you know, species of fucking crops that you can like that won't, like they're genetically modified so that they don't produce seeds, so you have to keep buying from the, you know, the fucking monopoly. Like it's just that they're really good at this like capitalism monopoly shit in like agriculture and farming.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, you know, that platform capitalism model is one that, you know, we see in all kinds of industries, like you said, John Deere and like Boeing, I think.
Monsanto.
Yeah. But like, you know, across, I mean, obviously like the tech companies are all platform monopolies, like Uber is, right? But, you know, stuff like Boeing, like I think Boeing rents it's like you rent their engine torque or something like that. And then you pay
Incredible.
a subscription to like, I think you buy the engines. I think you maybe getting parts of this wrong, but it's like you don't necessarily buy the engines. You pay for the repair of those engines at a certain time or something. You have a subscription to their torque output or something of the engine. I don't know, you know, but anyway.
So you're like bound to their repair and maintenance.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Well, we talked a lot about the animal characters in your book, but I think some of the most impactful parts of the book are when you're talking about the human characters and the way that you link it both to the solidarity and determination of ordinary people, but then also how racism and inequality and poverty exacerbate the impact of deadly viruses and diseases. So just in the way that, you know, industrial animal farming creates the perfect conditions for diseases to spread through animal populations, modern capitalism creates the perfect conditions for diseases to spread through poor and working class populations. And so 2 examples that you raise are valley fever, which is, as I understand it, it's spread through funguses, spores in the air, to disturbing effect. And then trench fever, which is, you know, a disease that shouldn't exist anymore, famous for in the trenches of the First World War, but now propping up in homeless populations in Canada. So could you talk to us a bit about, I guess, the impacts of inequality on people and the ways that diseases interact with that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, so like of those two you mentioned, like valley fever is a, like you said, it's a fungal disease that lives in the soil in parts of Southwest US. And it infects people's lungs. Essentially, you breathe in the spores of this fungus. They get kicked up by the wind, and you breathe in the fungus. And most people, like, it doesn't cause any major health problems. It sort of gets attended to by your body's immune system, and then like you have like maybe a mild cold or something, and then you're fine. That's like 90% of people. That's, you know, have that, and then you're immune for life. So it's like a low level thing. Then like a smaller percentage of people, like 5% or something, like have kind of bad health effects, like the, you know, like a pneumonia or like some sort of other health problems. And then a really small percentage of that have like catastrophic health effects, like you can die, you can get fungal meningitis, which is just like an absolutely horrifying disease, which I won't go into because it's really disturbing, but you know, it's very sad.
Yeah.
And that's a small percentage of people. But you know, I suppose that chapter, part of that chapter, as you mentioned, is like looking at the ways that the spread of that fungal disease is really intimately linked with like certain types of work and certain types of social positions, I guess. So the worst infected people, I suppose, the people that are infected the most are like people working in like construction and people outdoor that are exposed to these spores all the time, and like low paid like manual workers basically. But then there's particularly bad stuff in the Southwest US. So that's like California, Arizona, New Mexico. They're the like hotspots for this. That's the part of the continent where that fungus, the climatic conditions are right for it to survive. There's really bad stuff in the prison system.
Yeah.
So there's like a real history in California prisons of like inmates, you know, essentially having the really bad forms of this fungal infection, like fungal meningitis and whatever, and just like not really getting treatment for it, or like people being moved into the California prison system from elsewhere, or like from other parts of the state that maybe like don't have this virus, this fungus living in it, and they get moved into the prisons, and then they're like exposed to this environmental problem, and then they're sort of left to their own devices, basically.
And you talked sort of specifically about the inmates forced to do firefighting, and how they're at a higher chance of being exposed to the fungus.
Yeah, totally. And there's also certain like populations, you know, for whatever reason, I don't think we yet know like why, but Black Americans and Filipino Americans are like more susceptible to the fungus for some reason, and they are also the populations that are like, you know, higher represented in the prison population, for example. You know, so there's like a direct link with inequality and the carceral system and all these sorts of things with the way that this fungus is spreading. And then the other one you mentioned is like trench fever. That's like a Geordie, you know, that's like a Purple Pingers housing story.
Awesome.
So that's like it's got like, it's probably the one chapter in the book that is probably the most like, no one really talks about this disease. Like it's a real like I talked to the one researcher in the world who like studies it full time basically. So trench fever is a bacteria that, like you said, it's called trench fever because it emerged in World War I in the trenches. It was like rampant in the trenches. There's like 1 million Allied soldiers were like infected with this bacteria in World War I. It causes if it's left untreated, it causes endocarditis, which is like a bacterial infection of the heart, which is like really, really fatal and devastating. It requires surgery, and like most of the time it's more fatal than some types of cancer. But after World War I, so it's spread by body lice basically. That's why it was rampant in the trenches, because like people had no ability to like stay clean. Yeah. Right. So after World War I, that bacteria like basically disappeared from the global north. Like the only places it ever showed up for the decades after that was in the most extreme areas of hardship, like people fleeing wars, in refugee camps, people fleeing natural disasters in really overcrowded conditions, you know? Like there's papers from the early 2000s that are like, if this bacteria shows up, it signals extreme human hardship.
Yeah.
You know, but in the last 10-ish years, it's started to be detected with growing frequency in rich cities in rich countries, basically.
Yeah.
So the chapter looks at this cluster of infections in Canada, in Edmonton, which is like this oil-rich province of Canada. But there's been detections like all over the US, in France, in Tokyo, in Belgium. It's being detected with more frequency, and it's being detected among homeless people, basically. That's basically it's like homeless people in these rich countries that are being infected with this bacteria. And it's really like a sign of how bad the housing crisis is getting, essentially. That people are being millions and millions of people are being pushed closer and closer to the edge and into like housing precarity. And then the ones that like cross over that sort of line into like, you know, unsheltered homelessness are like facing conditions that are like worse than ever before. And it's sort of driving the reemergence of this disease that is associated with World War I trenches. You know what I mean? Like there are people in our countries, like in rich countries of the West, that are like suffering from this like horrifying disease that
I liked it, like just throughout the book you kind of make like you drop these little hints about like, oh, you know, all this shit's connected, and then you specifically mention housing. And I also like it's kind of snarky right at the start when you're like, you know, Australia's favorite hobby, like national
land speculation.
It's very funny, but like it's all fucking connected. But it's also like, I would argue not new, because like Engels wrote about it in the 1800s, like that, you know, worsening housing conditions, blah 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 blah, cramped and all that kind of shit in rich like areas that rich people live. I remember like going to a house in Footscray next to this like really new development, like beautiful new development on both sides, and then like they had put duck boards down throughout the house because the whole house was just wet. Like you just squelched through the carpet if you didn't stand on the duck board. And it's like this reminds me of a World War One fucking trench.
Yeah.
Totally.
In 2024 then.
Totally. And like, you know, it's important to say, I don't think I mentioned it, but it's important to say that like if you, like this is from the scientists studying this stuff, they're like, if you have access to a laundry and a shower, like so you can clean your clothes and you can shower, and most importantly you have access to like stable, secure housing, you just like won't get the disease. Like they call it a winnable battle in public health, in the sense that like, you know, you don't need any high-tech solutions to address it. You just need to like address the underlying drivers, and those underlying drivers are just like basic human dignity, you know? Right. And so like trench fever is it's not going to be like people who work in homelessness and, you know, and associated like social services sectors, like trench fever is not going to be the disease that they deal with the most. Like it's not the most pressing need, but to me, it's like this emblematic disease of the housing crisis. It's something that shows just how like, you know, ruthless we've gotten in treating people who like are outside the bounds of, I guess, the ordinary capitalist economy or something, you know, people that once we fall over that line, the things confronting us there over that other side are just like so much harder and so much worse, and it's so much harder to get back.
And it's a symbol of our regression, I guess, as like a society, that these kind of things that were extinguished mostly 100 years ago are now back entering mainstream Western kind of advanced capitalist society, so-called. And it's one of the contradictions, like you talked about it in the space of food production. We have this incredible scientific technical capacity, and then we have this like appalling atrocities to do in both the animals and the human beings who work in them. But it's like that across society. You know, we have the most incredible developments in like renewable tech and stuff, and then we have wars and expansions, and we have the most incredible capacity to build housing, and then we have homelessness, and we have nuclear capacity for war, while we have, you know, nuclear technology being used for medical research. Like, you know, these kind of binaries of progress and regression are just like part of the way capitalism works, you know. And the whole point of socialism is about expunging the negative and just allowing human capacities and the natural world to flourish, you know, unchecked by the oppression of the market economy.
And to that point, you quote an American anthropologist, Brian Goldstein, who said, "I realized that this crisis, this dramatic rise of the working homeless and housing precarity is the product not of a failing economy, but a thriving economy." And I think that is such an encapsulation of the problems that exist. And yeah, it's true. It's like the system's going gangbusters. The stock market is fucking crazy high.
Yeah.
Like Palantir's making billions of dollars. Elon Musk, the first trillionaire, like they're fucking happy. And then it's like trench fever.
Yeah.
Trench
totally.
fever.
We're back. Yeah, totally. And it's like, it's a certain type of person that's benefiting from that thriving economy, right? As we know, that's why it's like these diseases go to certain parts of the population, right? They go to working people and marginalized people. And that quote is amazing. That book that's from is amazing too. It's like about the rise of the working homeless in America. And yeah, it all adds up to this picture of just like why this stuff is emerging. And it's really concerning.
So then I think one of the things that just goes throughout the entire book is the way that, as you sort of mentioned, the people catching the ducks, the only guy who's researching trench fever, like all of these people around the globe who are putting in all this work to research issues that, actually affect a lot of us but don't affect the profit making of the system. Like these characters that are just such incredible, dedicated people struggling against a system that's designed not to allow them to do that work.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about any of the...
Yeah, totally. I mean, you named some of them. I mean, I guess, obviously the stuff we've been talking about here is really heavy and really intense, but I don't know. That's the situation we're in, I guess. I didn't create this. Don't blame me for how heavy it is. I didn't start the climate crisis. I don't think. Maybe I did. I shouldn't, maybe.
How hot's your heater?
It was a Scooby Doo moment. It was me all along. But I was. After writing the book, I think people come up to me and they go "Oh, man, are you just a depressive? Are you just majorly depressed? Are you just spending your nights in a dark room, just staring at the ceiling?"
Only sometimes.
Maybe 1 out of every
night.
20 days. Yeah. But the thing I came away with, is how many people there are in all parts of society and all over the world, just dedicating their lives to either repairing ecosystems or studying animals or studying these diseases or
The people looking after the bats.
yeah, exactly. The first chapter's about is in Victoria, where it's I've spent a lot of time with flying fox rescuers and just the amazing dedication they have to these non-human species. But then also people dedicating themselves to other people. The trench fever chapter is all about homelessness and in Edmonton, and the people I met while reporting on that chapter were just so amazingly dedicated as they are here. It's really unheralded, hard work that has a high rate of burnout and stuff, and people still do it. And I'm constantly inspired, I guess, and amazed at just how much solidarity and work there is, even in the most dire conditions, I think.
Because it flies against the sort of common sense thing that's pushed upon us, which is the idea that people are selfish and greedy and, it's a dog-eat-dog world and people only care about themselves. But actually, all across the world are people who are just, giving it all in order to be able to help other people. And that's a story that you'll just find over and over again. And I thought the quote that there's this beautiful paragraph towards the end of the book where you talk about the people doing this unheralded work. You quote John Berger, it's despair without fear, without resignation, without a sense of defeat. And then George Orwell saying, we need to do this because it's the power of facing unpleasant facts. And I think that's true for people doing work in the environment, and then it's also true for people who are socialists and want to see the end of this disgusting system which destroys our lives. Yeah, it's unpleasant and it's hard, but the only thing you can do is fight. What else are you going to do if not to quote another person, throw your bodies upon the gears, upon the wheels, try and stop it all. This is what we have to do to confront these crises.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, I feel like the story of like environmentalism and addressing the climate crisis and stuff in the last, whatever, 5 or so, 6 years, like since COVID, has been one of like, of that kind of despondency and that resignation almost. And I just feel like I find myself having to like fight that in me, and meeting people like this, you know, just like always fills my cup, I guess, in that sense. It's like the sense that like, not only do you have to like face these unpleasant facts and know it, but you also have to fight that tendency in yourself to just like resign and to just fight, just to be fatalist and to be, essentially doomerish about it. Like, you know, like I definitely have my moments. Like I'm not, like I'm only a human being. Like you can't read about, I don't know,
Pig abortion.
or seals dying in their tens of thousands or something. And, you know, you love the world, you love animals, you love people, and you can't help but see that and occasionally just be like overwhelmed. But you also have to, I think, fight that tendency in yourself to just be like fully resigned and doomerish about the whole thing. Because it's like there's so much in the capitalist system that wants you to be resigned. There's so much stuff pushing you in that direction to make you like checked out or just be like, there's nothing I can do, or all I can do is buy, you know, the I don't know, fair trade coffee from Starbucks or whatever, like, you know, and that's the end of my contribution there. It's like, you know, I've been telling people, like, in talking about the book, I've been saying like, you can do things big and small, you know what I mean? Like there's so many people in this book, they're not like addressing capitalism as a world system. Like they're doing stuff in their community, they're doing stuff with other people, they're just doing stuff collectively, whether it's like, you know, rescuing bats, like rescuing hundreds of bats to like help this endangered population like recover, or, you know, whatever it might be. And then, but I guess the key thing is just like, doing something and doing it with other people collectively, you know, is the key thing for me, I guess. Yeah.
And so I guess to finish where you started, in the introduction, you write that a struggle for one is a struggle for all. And then you say there's no way to square the polycrisis of mass extinction, global heating, disease spillover, and so on with preserving the system as we know it. So in here is an argument for the way that human beings are not just separated out from the environment. We're firmly part of it. The system that we exist in is one that is destroying us, and so we can't preserve it. We have to get rid of it. But the hope in that is that we're going to have to do it together.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing that, you know, on that I tell people as well is like, this is part of this polycrisis, right? Disease spillover, the stuff we've been talking about, is part of a, you know, you listen to them there, like biodiversity loss and mass extinction, global heating, all the rest. And so I think in some sense you can come to that and be like, you might see the topic or the book and be like, oh shit, there's another thing I got to worry about, you know, like on top of that, on top of that other thing. And that can feel overwhelming, you know. But I guess the hopeful thing, or the thing that you're speaking to there, is that like they're actually all related. It's not like other separate thing that we have to worry about. It's like addressing one addresses all those things basically. And that's the important thing to remember. It's not like, some unrelated thing. It's like we need to address the system as we know it, and that will address the polycrisis.
Well, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast. It was really informative,
uplifting,
and despite it all, enjoyable conversation.
Absolutely.
I presume your book is at any good bookstore.
Yes.
So
don't buy it. I was going to say don't buy it on Amazon, but do buy it on Amazon. I don't know. Read it wherever you can get it. Go to a bookstore and buy it.
We're ordering it in for Red Flag Books, so people can get it at the bookshop on Sydney Road or online. And please keep on writing, because it was a pleasure to read the book.
Oh man, thanks so much. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's so good.
It's like, it is genuinely like a really beautiful read. Like it's kind of like hauntingly fascinating and beautifully written. I really liked it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Riding out the party line.
Well, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Well done if you've come to the end of the episode. I know it was a long one. We promised we wouldn't do that anymore, but
we did.
Apparently
we will again.
Apparently we break promises. But if you liked the podcast, please like and subscribe and share, and become a patron of our Patreon.
And join the Socialist Party.
That's right.
Get involved.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, my darling. Oh my darling, party line. Oh, I never will forsake thee, for I love this life of mine.